Hey y'all, it's K Divine. This is my part two of Who Set Me Up. Um, we're gonna start this one with my former employer. Um, I used to work for a company by the name of Ascent Global Logistics. They are, well, I mean, we nationwide now, but the main office is in Belleville, Michigan. And I started working there back in April of 2018. I was a temp. At first, I worked for the temp company that they hired, like Aerotech. I temped for 6 months, and then I got my hire-in letters and stuff, and I was officially an employee by November or something like that. Yeah, like around October, November of 2018. Within about a year or so of me being a full-time employee, I became a team lead. And then 6 months after that, I became the second shift freight forwarding manager. I worked in the freight forwarding office for my entire career there. um, and this is a logistics company. Just for a little background for people so they can kind of understand what we did. We moved freight for a lot of like the automotive companies like GM, John Deere, Polaris, companies like that. We moved a lot of their freight around from place to place throughout the United States and internationally. Um, Freight forwarding, our job was mostly to find better and cheaper options. We had separate boards, excuse me, that would enable us to find carriers that weren't on their main shipments and get them to get some better prices and also make us some money. So that was what I did for pretty much all 6 years. I was really the track and trace queen. I was the one that made sure that the shipments were updated properly and everything. I did that the majority of the time as well, but I began managing in May of 2020 during COVID. Now, that manager position opened prior to the pandemic going like underway, like before everything shut down. Um, I was supposed to interview for it, but I had the flu. So I couldn't go to my interview, and then when I came back to the office, they had already sent everybody home, so they hadn't made any decisions, and I didn't get to do my interview till later on. Um, but I ended up getting the position anyways. I was doing the job. I was team lead. I was already doing the job, like literally. So now I don't know how these people were able to do this, but these people did something to my money. And they did something on my W-2s and to my taxes that something is not right there. So I don't think it was 2020, but 2021, yes. They claim I made over not 200. They claim I made over $100,000 one year. Now, my base pay like initially was like 51,500. And then they bumped me up a couple of times. I think the most that I made was like, I think my base was like 65 at some point. But there was no way that out of like the bonuses and like the incentive program that we had, there was no way that in the overtime I did, there was no way I made over $100,000. There's no way. And especially how they tax, and where'd that money go? Because I'm like, if I was really, because I mean, even just if I was getting my salary pay and nothing else, like that, your base salary is not your net. Like, that's your gross, but it's not your net. So it's like something was wrong there. And when I saw that, I was just like, I was so confused. But I didn't question it because I was just like, because I had just been working. I've been working. I was collecting my checks. I mean, I was eating good. I was living okay. All my bills were paid. So I didn't really think too much of it at the time. But somehow these people are saying that I made over $100,000. And you know what's so funny? The reason why I know that there's a problem with that is because my boss, who was my boss pretty much the entire time I was there, Mr. David Keller, he said to me once in a one-on-one, like, he was like, oh yeah, I took a peek at your taxes. He's like, you made a lot of money last year. Now, why the hell would you be looking at my taxes? Like, why would you be going and peeking at my W-2s? For what? What purpose do you have to do that? So, like I said before, just so you know, like, this, what has been happening to me has been happening for many years. I just was unaware of it until almost 2 years ago. January 8th, I had a spiritual awakening talking to my boss, Mr. David Keller, and I will get to that in just a few moments. But anyways, so this manager position or whatever, I loved my job. I'm not going to hold y'all up. I loved it. Now, there were some challenging moments. And not to mention, like, when I got the position, I had to train myself. Like, I figured out a lot of things on my own. I didn't have a mentor or anybody coming in and showing me how to do anything. I had to figure out all this stuff by myself. Like, because I remember, like, the first time I had to send time cards. I just went into my work day and I was just poking around in it, and I figured out how to send them on my own. And then the next day, like, because I did that on like a Sunday, because they're usually due like Monday by noon. And the next day, my boss calls me at like 10 o'clock in the morning. I work second shift, so I think I was awake, but it was like, it was early for me. And he was like, hey, I just wanted to go over the time cards with you. And I said, oh, I think I did it already. I think I figured it out. And he was like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah, you could go check. So he went into his work day to see, and he was like, oh, yeah, I see them. Okay, well, I'll just go approve them. Okay, cool. Like, that motherfucker didn't do anything for me. He didn't train me. He didn't teach me nothing. He kind of just let me figure stuff out on my own. And then he will often have the audacity, like when something was going wrong, try to lecture me. And it's just like, okay, but you're not giving me the tools that I need to be more successful. But I really didn't need a lot of help in certain areas. Like I said, I kind of just figured a lot of stuff out on my own. And you know, the people on my team were pretty solid. I liked the group I had for the most part. There's a couple of people I didn't care for, and they know who they are. But I was never disrespectful to them. I let them do their thing, and I kept it pushing. Now, towards the end of 2021, I was working a lot of overtime, and because, you know, it was COVID, so we were still full-time working from home, like I know most of y'all were as well. And a lot of my days were just consumed of being on that computer all day. Like, literally, like, I mean, I would wake up and be on the computer all the time. Like, I would go to the grocery store and buy some food and make some food, and then it's like, oh, it's time to get back on the computer. And I would be on the computer for 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours sometimes, trying to help, I guess. I mean, these were our quote unquote record breaking years. As that, like, every time we turned around, there was record breaking numbers, because in the beginning of COVID, you know, when everything was shut down, we were coming into work doing nothing, literally, because nothing was moving. It was so bad to the point where they had to furlough all of us. All of us had to furlough for 5 days, for a full week. We didn't have to do it all consecutively. Most of us didn't, but we had to all take 5 days off because the money or whatever, they couldn't pay us, is what they was basically telling us. So towards the end of 2021, I was just really tired and overwhelmed. It was to the point where I started realizing, like, I haven't seen my mom. I had spoken to her on the phone and stuff. This was before me and my mom I decided I can't have no relationship with her. But, prior to this, like, it was really important for me to go back home to Flint and see my mama and see my family and stuff like that. And I hadn't really seen her. She had come down. Was that 2021? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I was in that apartment. She had come down. Yeah, it was. She had come down, and her and my sister had came down to help me get a car. Well, she had to come pick me up because I actually got it in Flint. But it was like, other than that, I hadn't really seen them. And I hadn't spent no time with them. And it really bothered me. And I just realized, like, I wasn't eating very much. Like, I had all these groceries in my house, but I wasn't cooking. I was eating like bologna sandwiches, not because I was poor, but just because it was like one of the easiest things for me to make for myself, like, and eat. Cause I had dealt with anxiety and things like that for a very long time. So that was one of the things that I would do. Like, I just wouldn't have much of an appetite, but it's like, but I knew I needed to eat something. So I was like struggling with my weight. I was struggling with eating. I was struggling with my sleep. Like, it was a mess. And I started contemplating, like, what do I really want here? Like, what do I want? I was like, I love this job. I'm like, but the issue that I was having the most was that they had all these different plans for the company, which was fine. What they often would do is take people off of second shift and place them in other spaces, other departments, other groups. And I didn't have an issue with that. That was never my problem. My issue was that these people were taking them they were taking my employees and not replacing them in the same, like, at the same time. Because what would have been nice is if they would have allowed my employees to train the new ones and have me, go along with them, so that to make sure that person who was replacing them was ready to go when it was time for them to leave. But they would snatch that person. I'd have to pick up the slack. My team lead would have to pick up the slack before she left to go to charter. And then, I'm working all these hours and I'm not able to even really do any managerial duties. I'm doing work just like the rest of my team. Like, I'm working really hard, doing everything, doing track and trace, bidding, doing all of this stuff. So it's like doing emails, like I'm everywhere. At this point I had 3 screens, so plus my laptop. So it's like, it was a mess, okay? It was a mess. And me and my boss got into it one day because we've always gotten into it. And I don't even remember what this argument was about, but this was in December of 2021. And he just was being such an ass to me for no reason. And I'm just like, I work my butt off and do what I can, and I just really don't understand why you always, acting this way towards me. And he just seemed so confused and like, oh, well, I didn't know. And he always had to play the victim, like he was just so lost, like he didn't know what he was doing. And this is why I keep telling y'all, when it comes down to narcissistic people, these people know exactly what they're doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was always trying to be an asshole to me on purpose. So they knew I was really mad because I didn't even call him or anything. Like, I left work that day. Like I said, I can't even remember now. So much has happened. I don't even remember what I was mad at him for. But whatever he did, he pissed me off to the point where I just left work. I said, I'm leaving for the day. I'm not asking for permission. I'm signing out and I'm leaving for the day. And then I came back the next day and I told him, like, cause I had somewhere to go. I was going to see somebody, and which that was a setup too. That I'll get into that later. But I was like, I'm taking a half day. I'll see y'all when I get back from my vacation. and I left. And I came back on like Monday or something like that. I had like taken the weekend off. And then when I came back, he was all like, he's like, you just kind of left me hanging. I don't. He's one of those narcissistic people who feels like he could say whatever he wants to you, but he doesn't like it when he doesn't get a response from you, because it leaves him feeling really lost. He does not like that. And he was like, you left me hanging over the weekend, like, I wasn't sure what really was going on. He just, all that bullshit. And I was like, oh, well, I was angry and I needed to go. And so I didn't feel like really fucking talking to him. So this is getting towards Christmas or whatever. We're about to, have some days off or whatever. And, well, some of us like me would work pretty much all the holidays. And I get a Teams meeting call from my big boss, Mr. David Camden. And he calls me, and it's him and Mr. Keller on the phone. And I'm like, what's up? And he was like, I called because Keller thought that if he called that you wouldn't answer. And he was absolutely right, because I wasn't going to answer for him, because I didn't feel like talking to him. I'm like, what do you want? Like, tell me in a message. Send it in an email. So these motherfuckers gave me $20,000. And you know what? That may have put me over the edge of 100,000, I guess. But I don't feel like I made $20,000 in bonuses and overtime. So that's where I'm confused at. Someone will go have to show me some of those numbers, okay? But they gave me $20,000. Now, don't get excited. The only reason why they gave me $20,000 was because they were afraid that they were going to lose me, right? But also, hold on, I have to sneeze. Anyways, this $20,000, like, don't get excited, because when they tax bonuses like that, the government taxes it. I only got $11,000 out of that $20,000 bonus. I only got $11,000. And that money came in handy. I needed it. But, I had paid some bills and stuff, but the new year came, and it was 2022. Again, I have already been struggling. I had already been telling them, like, I need more people. I need help. And we got into a manager director meeting, all the big people that were under Mr. Camden. And this man proceeded to tell us, stop asking for more employees. We're not getting any more people. You're going to have to deal with the people that you have. Now, that wasn't directed specifically to me. That was directed towards the group. But because of the conversations that I had just had with these people about how I needed help, and I'm like, I can't keep working like this. I was so exhausted, guys. I can't even explain to you how tired I was. And I'm the youngest manager. Okay, I'm like 25, 26 years old. And I don't mind working, but I'm not gonna slave all day on the computer for you people. I'm not gonna break my back trying to pick up the slack because y'all refuse to hire people, or hire quality people, I should say. Because a lot of them times that they were hiring people, it's not that they couldn't get people in the door. They just, one, couldn't train them well, and two, they just were hiring people who just did not understand the system. And that system it wasn't necessarily an easy system to grasp. I'm not gonna lie. It's one of those jobs that's just not for everybody, and it's nobody's fault. It's just not for everybody. And for the ones that know. And so I just started thinking, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was like, I'm not getting any more employees. I said, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And then I started feeling bad, because I was like, these people just gave me $20,000 in a bonus. They just gave me $20,000 in a bonus. And am I really about to step down? So I got through the month of January, and I was very upset just by everything. And so February 1st, I sent an email to my boss, and I told him, like, this is not what I wanted to do, but this is what I need to do, and I'm choosing to step down from this position. Like, thank you for the opportunity, but I can't do this anymore. This man calls me he's like, I got your email. I'm like, yeah. What's going on? I was like, I can't keep working like this. I would prefer to go to first shift and, work 9 to 5 and, be all right. I I would prefer to go work 9 to 5 and on first shift so I can live decently because I can't keep doing this. Like, it's not, and second shift wasn't the issue. It wasn't that it was second shift. It was the fact that I like I said, I was working so much. I was on the computer so much, all the time. And I mean, I would get on the computer at 1:30 in the afternoon. My shift, my people, like my people didn't start coming in until 3:30. So I'd be on an hour, 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours prior to my team coming on. Sometimes for meetings as well. And then I would stay till, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30, helping making sure that third shift, which at the time was extremely short, they needed help too. And we used to be on the phone complaining, which those people ended up really turning on me. Those people they showed their ass, and I'll get to that later on. But so I ended up stepping down. They gave me till April 1st. So I had to work through February and March as a manager, which I hated because I didn't want to. I pretty much checked out because I was like, I'm so over this shit. And then come April 1st, I was officially on first shift working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And I loved it. I got to play the background. I was bidding like I used to, doing track and trace, helping out. I got to, fall into oblivion to the background and let, the new manager on second shift take his role. I asked not to be a part of the hiring process for that because I was like, I really don't care who y'all put in this position. Ain't got shit to do with me. They let me know who got it and everything, and I was just like, that's y'all business. Yeah, I just went about my business. So for the rest of 2022, I pretty much, I faded into the background. But I got pregnant in June of 2022 as well. So I didn't tell them right away. I waited until my second trimester to let these people know that that I was pregnant. And it was a brutal pregnancy, but I got through it, and luckily we were still working from home full time, so I got away with a lot of stuff during that pregnancy. I was sick my first trimester. So they started making a lot of changes towards the end of 2022, and they pretty much dismantled freight forwarding. My group was left with 3 people by the end of the year. My manager went to be a manager in a different department, and my boss, Mr. Keller, became my direct manager once again. Not my favorite thing in the world. But for those months, we didn't really do anything. They didn't have anything really set in stone. Like, I came and clocked into work and just kind of sat there most days. And it was kind of heaven, to be honest. And plus, I was making extra money because we had an incentive program and they didn't have the new ones set up yet. They were changing everything, but they were giving us like our base. And my average was like $900. So I was getting an additional $900 each month, which was helpful at that time. So the new year comes, and now they're starting to ask us to come back into the office. So I didn't have to because of my schedule at the time. I ended up having to change my schedule. I was working 4/10s. I was working Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. No, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. Sorry. I had Wednesdays and Thursdays off because I was in school. I was working on my master's. I had been working on my master's since 2021. And I try to utilize those 2 days in the middle of the week to try to dedicate to working on my schoolwork, which didn't always work out the way I wanted it to. But nonetheless, I work 7 to 5. those days or something like that. Yeah, I think I was working like, or 7:30 to 5:30 or something like that. And yeah, so they started wanting us to come back into the office. I think I ended up going in like once or twice because it was like snowstorms and stuff. But I was like 8 months pregnant, so I didn't really have any issues at the time. It was awkward going back into the office for me, especially like this is the first time people are seeing me for the most part after stepping down from my position, even though it had been some time. Uh, and then I come back pregnant, so it was weird. So I ended up, going into maternity leave at the end of March and had my daughter on my due date, which was March 24th. Now, this is when stuff starts getting weirder for me. So prior to me going on maternity leave, HR told me to do my temporary disability application stuff online. And that's what I did. I had a confirmation email in my email that I had completed it. Now, a few weeks go by and I don't get a paycheck. And so I start to panic because I'm like, I have rent to pay. And at the time I was living at a 2-bedroom townhouse that I had moved to in like, I think technically like July of 2022. And I mean, I could afford the rent at the time, but it was like, I needed to pay my bills. I didn't have any extra money with me, so I didn't get a paycheck. And so I'm asking HR like, hey, my check says 0. So like, what's up? And they were like, oh, you didn't do your disability thing. And I was like, I did. I have a whole, like, I have an email that with the confirmation on it. So what do you mean? So then I call our disability people, and they said that they don't have any record of my application at all. And so I'm like, but I have this email. So how did I get this email if you guys don't have any record? They're like, well, we don't know. So I had to do all this stuff over the phone or whatever. So now I'm behind, and I had to ask my mama. I had to borrow $2,000 from her so that I could pay some of my bills. And I had to wait a few weeks to get to start getting my paychecks, but I ended up getting my paychecks. And then HR messed up again. Towards the end of it, I had a C-section. So when you have a natural birth, they give you 8 weeks. When you have a C-section, they give you 10. So I had already informed them like, hey, I had a C-section. So do I get those extra weeks? And they were like, yep, you get 10 weeks now. So I was like, cool, bet. So my return date wasn't until like sometime in July. And I want to say it was like July 19th or so. It was like Juneteenth or something like that. And I had missed another paycheck towards the end, and I reached out and I was like, hey, my paycheck says 0. What's up? And they're like, oh no, we're sorry. We put the wrong dates in for your return. And I'm like, what? You put the wrong dates in? That she was like, it was my mistake. And I was like, okay, well, you'll have to, they told me I had to wait another week before they'd be able to send it to me. And I was like, well, this wasn't my doing. Like, I didn't do this. So can you like extradite this? Like, can you try to like send it now instead of, they're like, no, there's nothing we can do. And they just blew me off. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, I just had a baby and these people are stressing me out. And it was already bad enough that I had to start coming back into the office. They wanted us back in the office 2 days a week at this point still. This is right before we started going into 3. Actually, it was 3 days, but because of my schedule, I still only had to come into the office for 2. And I think at the time I was just going in on Mondays and Tuesdays because I had a babysitter. My mama was watching my daughter on Tuesdays. And I don't remember what we were doing for her on Mondays at the time. but but I was able to keep her Wednesdays and Thursdays while I was, trying to get stuff done. And then Friday and Saturday I was at home, so usually she was with her dad while I was working. So it ended up working out. But anyways, so when I come back from maternity leave, it was a little weird because my shift bled into second shift. So it was weird, okay? It was weird. And they didn't really talk to me like they used to, which was fine because I knew that things were different. But now stuff started happening. I started getting bullied by these people. And mind you, I trained all these people. These people would not be where they were without me. Like, seriously, I taught them everything they knew. And I started getting bullied. They started messing with my phone queue settings. They were micromanaging me, and I was like, what is going on? Towards the end of 2023, so we would help out our courier company, Expedite, and we would help answer their phone calls and talk to the drivers and help the drivers out and all this other stuff. Now, one of their main dispatchers, Miss Tanya, who was my work mom there, she did a lot for me. She was off one Saturday, and so they left me by myself to answer all these phone calls and do all this work by myself. And I got completely overwhelmed, and I ended up like having to shut my phone off and just trying to, get other work done. And to the point where my boss called me and was like, are you working? Like, and I was like, yes, I'm working. I said, but I'm overwhelmed. Like, I'm out of the phone because I can't keep answering all these calls back to back and do all the work, like, and do emails. And like, you guys left me here by myself to do all this work. And then so then when we got back to work on Monday, they had this meeting of like, oh, do you think that she was really working? Like, questioning me as if any of them were left alone doing what I was doing, that they would be able to do it. And luckily Tanya went to bat for me and was like, yes, she was working, and yes, I think she was overwhelmed. That was a lot of work. So they're like, okay, well, we're not going to hold that against you. But then they started to micromanage me and we started having all these meetings because I was struggling. I'm not gonna lie. When I first got back, I don't know, I've said this on the channel before, but for those of you that don't know, I almost died in childbirth. Okay. It was very scary because I remember everything and I remember how I felt. And coming out of that and having a newborn, the brain it took my brain a while to get back on track. Like, everything was like, it just felt, I'll try to find a way to explain that later. But I struggled a little bit getting back to work because my brain just wasn't working as fast as it used to. Like, I was exhausted. I had a new baby who, she was like any other newborn who wake up in the middle of the night and need to eat. So it's like, yeah, I'm tired. Me and her dad didn't live together or anything, so I had her the majority of the time. So it's like, I was exhausted. And these people were taking advantage of the fact that I wasn't as fast as I used to be, and that they were using that against me. And like, they started managing like my phone queue, saying like how I wasn't taking enough phone calls and all this other stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll try to do better. Like, at first I took it really hard, and then I started just trying to pick myself up about it and be like, you can do better. So towards the end of, at the end of the year of 2023, I started reading books about covert narcissistic mothers, and they resonated with me. And I started to take on the qualities, or not take on, but I started to really look at the qualities of narcissists in general. And I started identifying some of the things that my mom would do to me with the things that other people were doing towards me. And I was like, so this is narcissism for real, for real. Now, I have a degree in psychology, and I was well versed in narcissism, but I just never thought about it the way that it is today. Like, the way that I saw it, like, you know, you look at the research, there's not a lot of known narcissists, and that's because narcissists don't go to therapy to get diagnosed for the most part. There are some that are going and getting diagnosed, but for the most part, most narcissists don't believe that they're narcissists. So a lot of them don't believe in therapy. So the new year comes and it's 2024 now, and I have a brand new lease on life. I started eating better. You know, I had gained a lot of weight after my pregnancy. I gained all the weight I had during my pregnancy plus 10 pounds. I was 195 pounds. I had gained all that weight because I was depressed. Postpartum depression whooped my ass. And I just decided, you know, I want to feel better. I had talked to a dietitian. I had started eating differently. And I was just trying to take better care of myself. Also, just to help my brain get back on track. That seemed to worry some of the people who were making fun of me, because me taking care of myself just wasn't what they wanted. They wanted me to crumble. So here we go with January 8th coming in. So at this point, I had been, like I said, I had been being bullied by these people on second shift. They had been messing with my phone queue settings, making it so that I was getting back-to-back phone calls and they weren't getting anything. They were all sitting there doing absolutely nothing. So I was like, this is not cool. And to this point, this was like the second or third, no, it was the third time that it had happened. And I was done with it at this point. So I tell my boss, like, I need to have a discussion with you. And I was nervous because I never really spoke up for myself like that. I kind of just let stuff happen a lot. But something in me that year told me, like, you gotta start being more stern. So I mustered up the courage and I went to him and I was like, this is an abuse of power. Like, what is this? Like, I trained all these people, you know, like, let's have a meeting if that's what we need to do. Like, let's have a meeting about this. This man was, when I tell y'all, he was excited. He was smiling. He was like, just loving it. He loved that I was hurt, that I was in pain. He loved it. He was having a good time. He couldn't even get comfortable. Like, he was walking, like, he was like, oh yeah, it's just, yeah. Like, he just was, I could see the demon coming out of him. That's the first day that I ever saw a demon come out of somebody. And I got scared because I was like, what the hell is happening? And we argued, went back and forth for like 45 minutes. And it went nowhere because he just kept saying, like, he would not take accountability. He would not say, like, well, they're wrong and we'll work this out. He just kept saying, like, well, what about if it was a misunderstanding, or what about this, or what about, like, he just kept going in circles. I was like, there is no misunderstanding. I was like, it's not a mistake after the first time. So when I realized, like, this is going nowhere, when I realized that this conversation was going nowhere, I politely got up, went and got my stuff and left and started walking. You know, I got my stuff and I clocked out and I went to go pick up my daughter. Now, he tried to walk out with me and he was like, I was like, you don't have to wait for me. He was like, oh no, my family always taught me to, you know, ladies first and all this other stuff. And I was like, this man had never been gentlemanly towards me. And now all of a sudden today he want to be a gentleman. And from that day forward, everything changed. So the next day was his birthday. And he didn't speak to me at all. I was pretty quiet. I told my coworker Mindy, like, I'm done dealing with it. And that was also the day that I decided, whatever happens, I'm going to do the best that I can. And I'm just going to try to push through this the best that I can. And that whole year, all of last year, from that day, January 8th, till my last day that I worked, which was December 17th, I was harassed by those people. I couldn't even go put my lunch in the microwave without people, like, standing in front of the microwave. Like, it was very subtle stuff. Like, they would come and stand in front of the microwave and pretend like we had a coffee machine. They would pretend that they're getting coffee or whatever. They would get coffee. They would take forever. We had a little gym in our in our facility where I decided to start going for myself during my breaks. I would go into the gym, and people would come in there to see if I was actually working out. Like, they were spreading rumors and lies about me to the point where, like, people that I didn't even know were looking at me funny, like snickering at me, laughing at me. This one of the directors for USA Jet, Amy Schweck, she did something weird towards me once where we were both in the hallway. I was on my phone watching a video or something, and she tried to pretend like I did something to her. So she backed up against the wall and she did and so I made sure that there was enough space in between us, and I just said, "Excuse me," and I kept on walking. Hold on one second. So yeah, like, it was just weird. Oh, I need to mention too, I had to change my schedule. So I was still in college, or I was still doing my master's program, but I knew, because of what they said to me, like, because my boss would not do the right thing in this situation, I decided that I was going to change my schedule. So I decided to, it was a really wonk schedule. So I decided I was going to start working Thursdays again. So I changed my schedule. I was working 5 days a week. I was working Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 8 to 4, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then 7:30 to 3:30 on Saturdays. And I did that because I was like, I don't want to have to deal with these people on second shift. And he just kept trying to tell me in that conversation to be a team player and all this other stuff. So I was like, well, the best way I could be a team player is to support the team that I'm actually on. And that's by, focusing most of my efforts on them. And, the 8 to 4 situation was mostly because it was going to help me get my baby to daycare and get me to work. Because the daycare opened at like 7:30 or something like that. They eventually opened again at 7. But, it helped me to get up in the morning, get her to daycare, and then get myself to work. And I'm going to be honest, I came to work late most days, but I was one of the hardest workers in there. So they never said shit to me about me being late. So, like I said, I was harassed and all this other stuff the whole time. They kept changing the phone queue settings. So they stopped messing with mine, but they were changing everybody else's to the point where I was getting back-to-back phone calls. And Miss Tanya, she became the track and trace person for the Ascent Expedite group. And she was usually the first to get phone calls. But if she wasn't there, I was getting all the phone calls. And I'm like, there's all of these people in that group. There's at least, 4 other people on day shift in that group. But somehow none of them are getting phone calls, but I'm having to answer all their phone calls. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So sometime in August, right before I had some PTO time, I had noticed that this had happened. And so I politely stayed out of the phone queue for half of the day. I was like, I'm going to stay out of the queue until someone notices. Finally, my team lead, Rick Kincaid, who I did not like, who really he didn't like me because he felt like that manager position that I ended up getting, that he should have gotten it. And he can feel however he wants to feel. I don't care. But he always had this issue with me because of that. So whatever. And he always wanted to feel like he was better and smarter than me, and that's fine, but he wasn't. He just wasn't. He didn't really work. He didn't really want to work. He really just wanted to be in charge of people. He wanted to tell people what to do because that gave him good feelings inside. He wanted to be a boss, not a leader. And he finally noticed one day, he finally noticed that day that I wasn't in the phone queue. He was like, hey, you need to jump into both phone queues. And I said, but he didn't address me directly. He sent me a Teams message. And so I told him, so I said out loud, you can address me directly. And he didn't respond. Nobody said anything. So I was like, okay, so that's the game we gonna play. So I typed him back. I said, you can address me directly. And he was like, come talk to you. And I said, yeah. He came over there all timid and nervous. Is everything okay? So like these people were plotting and planning, like, so, and I was like, you know, I'm the only one getting these phone calls. So someone needs to show me in the phone queue what's up. And so then they start blaming people. Oh, well, I didn't do that. Vince did that. And Vince was like, he was the director of Ascent Expedite. He's like, I didn't do that. And then they just started arguing. So I'm looking at them like, so y'all don't even have y'all story straight. So I was like, y'all need to figure it out. So then he tries to bring me into one of our conference room and he's like, I'm going to show you, like, I didn't do this and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, tell Vince to come in here and prove his point. Do that. And so these people, all the managers and team leads go into Mr. Keller's office, and they were in there for 2 hours, 3 hours, trying to get their story straight. And then they bring me in talking about oh, well, it was just a mistake. And I said, this has happened 4 times. This has been happening multiple times. And he's like, well, then it was just an oversight. It's just, and I said, it's not a mistake after the first time. This is negligence. So you're telling me that the first time I told you about it, it didn't matter. The second time, it's all these times it's just, oh, well, it's just a mistake. It's a mistake. It's a mistake. No, it's not. It's not a mistake. These people were doing this stuff to me on purpose to make me try to crash out. And at the time, they were also messing with my money. So we had this incentive. They have a new incentive program. I was getting like $100 and something every incentive paycheck, when I should have been getting like 4 or 5. They were counting certain things against me, like bidding numbers, when I wasn't bidding. There was only one time, and that was in November of last year, that I actually got my full paycheck for incentive. Now, I'm gonna just veer off really quick because, like I said, like, I don't really feel like I need to go into full detail about all the harassment and stuff, because like I said, like, they were just, people were doing weird stuff, like making faces at me. Like, it was real childish. Like I said, the stuff with the phone queue, the micromanaging. They wanted me to quit. That's their goal. They wanted me to have like a big blow up and quit. And I'll get into the last thing that these people did right before, like, I'll get into that. Well, one of the things that they did, this was right after Donald Trump won the 2024 election. I'll tell you exactly what they did in just a second. Shoot, I lost my train of thought. But the money. Now, this is just my inkling, because this is just what I could gather based on the stuff that I could see. They were stealing money from that company. I think it's a big RICO situation with that company right now. Now, we got sold to a different company. Mr. Martins, he owns it. HIG. Y'all can go look that up. I don't think that he had anything to do with what was going on with me. But I do believe that he knew that they were stealing money, and he was gathering evidence. So, and I think that those people weren't very bright, because I think that they were talking about the stuff that they were doing in Teams messages, which the company can pull at any time, even if you delete them. All those Teams messages. If you're on a company computer, they can pull all of your Teams messages or whatever system y'all use. They can pull all that stuff. So y'all be careful about the stuff that y'all put in your messages in the offices. But they were stealing my money, but they were stealing money from other people too, and I don't think that those people realized it. I believe that they paid people to work up against me, to lie about me and say that I was like a bad person, because people were treating me just so poorly, like I was like public enemy number 1 for no reason. People I didn't even know. I had never met some of these people, and they were treating me so badly, and I just did not understand. So I just took it, and I was just like, it's cool. I'm isolated. I don't bother these people, and I'm gonna keep coming into work every day. And like I told y'all in my last video, like, I kept my car longer than I should have. I had to abandon my bank account at U of M Credit Union because I was so behind on other bills that it was taking all my money and I couldn't pay for nothing. So I had to just abandon it. Now, they were calling me constantly about paying on this car, and I just stopped paying on it. And I prayed a prayer to God. I said, God, as long as I'm able to keep this car, I will go to that office every single day. Every day that I'm scheduled to work, other than my PTO and all that other stuff, every day that I have to go, I will go. And I did not miss a day. I think I had to call off once because I was sick, but other than that, like, I went to work every single day despite all of the harassment and everything that they were doing towards me. And to close this video out, I'm going to share with you what these people did right after the 2024 election. Now, I didn't believe that Kamala was going to win. I was surprised that she got as many votes as she did. But I knew that they wasn't going to let that black lady or whatever Indian lady in the White House. We've progressed in different ways in this country, but this country is not ready for that. They're just not. And I knew that Trump was going to probably win. And I don't have a problem with it. That's just democracy. That's just the way it works. That's what people voted for. He won. These people, there were at least two people that I knew of, and I'm going to say their names. Crystal Farmer and Heather Zadok dyed their hair red the day after the election results came out. They came back with fully red hair. Now, for those of you that, and I'm not just talking about like just streaks of red, full on red hair. I don't know why these people did this to piss me, like trying to upset me, or if they were trying to scare me. But for those of you that are unaware of usually what that means when people dye their hair red like that, that's like a skinhead thing. That's like a Nazi thing, or like a white supremacist thing. And the reason why I knew that that's what it was because that Friday, when I came into work, I was late, by the way. I was late because I left my phone. Like, I couldn't sleep because I started realizing what was happening. And I was like, these people are revealing themselves to me. They're telling me that they're white supremacists. And everyone else around me is oblivious to what's going on. And I'm like, how do y'all not understand what's happening right now? And I was late to work because I left my phone in the living room and I fell asleep in my bedroom and I didn't hear my alarms going off. I still made it to work in a decent amount of time, but they isolated me that day. So there was only a few black employees on first shift with me anyways, and that was Craig and Tanya, and they both sat right behind me. There was no other black people in my group, and any black people and there was Omar, but he worked Thursday, or he went Sunday through Thursday, and it was a Friday, so he wasn't going to come into work anyways. But I was the only black person in the room, and it was very quiet that day. And they were making gestures towards me, like don't you get it, type of deal. And even Crystal, when I went to go warm my lunch up, because I was like, I'm not leaving, because I was like, if these people want me to leave, they're gonna have to tell me to my face they want me to leave. I'm not quitting this job just because they want me to leave. I was like, I'm gonna pretend like none of this shit happened. See, and if y'all go back and watch my video about detach, become non-reactive and play dumb, that's what I'm talking about. Play dumb. I played dumb. I just didn't say anything. I let them know that I knew with my eyes, though. I was just like, this is shameful. Like, I looked my boss dead in his eyes, and I just gave him this look like, you are disgusting. Because I'm like, the reason why I didn't react was because there were other black people in the building that day. So I was like, well, if they're not freaking out, I'm not going to freak out either. If they don't know what's going on, I'm not going to put myself on Front Street and start acting crazy, because that's what them people want. So when I was going to warm my lunch up, Crystal was coming back from one of them rooms or something, And she tried to stop. She's like, oh, are you because I tried to give her space so that she could come through, so I didn't have to brush past her or nothing. She's like, oh, are you leaving? And I just gestured for her to move past me. She's like, oh, never mind. So she told on herself. So, and then that same night, one of them people, Jared Felt, he tried to follow me because they were mad because I didn't blow up. Now, this is how I know that they were telling negative lies and slandering me. They were scapegoating me for something. I'm not sure what it is they were scapegoating me for. But they were trying to convince other people that I was this unstable person, right? They were trying to convince these people that I was unstable and that that I was crazy. That's what everybody's been trying to do around me for a while now. And when I didn't react and I just left, I left at 4:00 like I do every day, they got mad. Well, I stayed until I had to make up my time. Or maybe I made up my time then. I think I left at 4:00 because I was like, I'm not staying. I'll make up my time on Saturday, which is what I did. I worked from home on Saturdays. We had to work 4 days in the office and we got to work 1 day at home. So, yeah, I left and he tried to follow me. And I don't know what, Jared, whatever you was smoking, I don't know what he was smoking. It didn't look like weed. But he was trying to muster up the courage to do something to like hurt me or something. I ended up having to take some back roads. Thank God I knew my city well enough to know how to get there without getting on the freeway and everything. So I got back home and I was okay. But yeah, them people was crazy. They dyed, Lord, and I tell you, they dyed their hair red. And the reason why I know that was geared towards me, because like a couple days after that, Crystal dyed her roots black. And within like a couple weeks after that, the red started to fade kind of into a pinkish color. But she wouldn't have dyed her roots black if that wasn't her, and if her intention wasn't to show that she was telling on herself and showing that she is a white supremacist. And now, you could be a white supremacist. That's your business. But you can't be a out white supremacist in a company that has a policy that claims that they don't discriminate. And you have black employees. And she had recently hired a black employee too, which was kind of funny, for second shift. And it's almost like they wanted me to like go crazy and like try to go talk to the girl and be like, you need to be careful because these people are racist and this and that. And I was like, I'm leaving this alone. Not that I didn't want to help people, but it's like they wouldn't have believed me anyways. And it's like, these people gonna have to learn on their own. These people, they're gonna have to try to use their own discernment. Like, you can't save everybody, y'all. You can't save everybody. And that's why you have to detach, become non-reactive, and play dumb. So I dealt with that harassment and bullying and all of that whole time. I dealt with the phone queue system and stuff because they kept doing the same shit. So after a while, it wasn't even worth getting upset about. So I took the phone calls, and I would get up and leave and go take a walk if that's what I needed to do. And then I'd come back and sit down and work, and then I would leave. I did that until December 17th. That was my last day working. And then December 18th, my car got repossessed. And when my car got repossessed, I sat in my living room and I said, well, I guess I'm not going to work tomorrow. And I didn't. I turned my alarms off. My daughter was with her father. So I slept real good too. I turned all my alarms off. I woke up to a text message from my new manager, who was can't even think of his name right now. That's so sad. I don't care about them people that much. This was somebody who was once a team lead on third shift with Crystal. Dan Coleman. Thank you. Thank you, Spirit. He texted me like, hey, is everything okay? I blocked. And then he called me and I blocked him. Then people started calling me, trying to see if I would answer, and I just blocked everybody. They started messaging me on Facebook. I blocked everything. And I just never spoke to them again. And the reason why I know that those people were messing with my money is because when I got my W-2 in January, I had made $47,000 that year. That's the least amount of money I had made that in my entire career there, regardless of being manager or not. I should have at least been making closer to 50, but they were stealing money from me. So that's how I knew. And then they sent me 2 W-2s. They sent me the same W-2 and said that one was corrected, but there was nothing different about it. They were all the same. And I think I have them both with me in my car right now. So I'm gonna wrap this video up now. This has been over this is an hour-long video. I'm sorry. These are probably gonna all be similar to this, but like I said, there's a RICO case going on probably with them people. They were embezzling money because they did it in our Mexico group. They have fired a whole bunch of people saying like, oh, they were doing this, and that. I'm like, them people wouldn't have just did that out of nowhere. They were instructed to do that. And I believe that David Camden used them as scapegoats and just fired all those people when he was the one that was pocketing that money. So I don't know what they were trying to scapegoat me for. I'm not sure how they were using me as the scapegoat, or like I said, they have been messing with stuff for years. So that's why they were trying so hard to get me to react so that they could justify what they were doing, or cover up what they were doing and put me in jail and stuff like that. So then take the focus off of them and put the focus on me. And I later on found out that those people were working with my apartment complex, which I'll get into in the next video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe and share this video. Share part 1 as well. I will keep going into detail about like who set me up, because I'm going to get into my family. I'm going to get into, like I said, the apartment complex next, the daycare that my daughter was attending. I'm going to get into all of that. I love you guys. Thank you for watching. Please share this. And it's your okay Divine. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.